Sorry. Welcome, everybody. My name is Kristina Dooley, and I am very excited about our conversation tonight. We have been doing these Star Paths webinars for almost a year now, and each month we host somebody who has a profession that we think is pretty cool, and something that we also feel like a lot of students have some maybe misunderstandings about what those careers are like, or maybe myths are in their mind about how to get to those particular jobs. And several months back, I was talking with my friend who is on the screen here, Cynthia Deitle, and we were talking about just her career trajectory. And I thought to myself, I need her to join us for one of these Star Paths webinars because she has such a cool background. Without stealing your thunder, Cynthia, I'll let you maybe give the very short version. I just said to her before we went live, you have a very extensive CV, which is fantastic because it's really, I would say it's also pretty diverse. I mean, the things that you've done have been really interesting, I think, for anybody that would look at what you've done up to this point in your career. And you're not done yet, so I don't think. But if you want to give just maybe a short little introduction of yourself, that would be wonderful.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me to share some time with you. I'm very excited to have a conversation with you and happy to engage with anybody after this if that's helpful. So I am the Director and Associate General Counsel for the Civil Rights Team at Meta, formerly known as Facebook. I've been there for just shy of 3 years. Before that, I was the Director of Civil Rights Reform at the Matthew Shepard Foundation, which is an LGBTQ-focused nonprofit based in Denver, Colorado. Before that, I was a FBI special agent for 22 years, focusing on civil rights, and spent most of my time as an agent in the New York City office. And I rose to the level of chief of the civil rights unit for a number of years. I'm also an attorney, and I am licensed in several states, born and raised in Akron, Ohio, and a graduate of the Ohio State University.
Well, for those who are watching this, some folks know me, but not everybody. But I am also from Ohio, so we won't put any Ohio bias on anything. But and I know you're another kid from just a kid from Akron, right? But so that actually leads me to kind of the first jumping off point where I'd like to jump off with our conversation, Cynthia, is we work with students who are looking at college opportunities that they hope will eventually lead to some kind of profession that they're interested in. So my question for you is, when you went to Ohio State and when you were thinking about your college opportunities, did you already know that you wanted to be a lawyer? How did you end up deciding to go on that path?
At that point, I did know that I wanted to be an attorney, but choosing Ohio State was not really based on the fact that I wanted to be a lawyer later on in my life. It was just, I had, I felt like I had grown up there. I went to campus a number of times when I was a kid, mostly to see football games with my parents. So I knew the campus, it was very familiar to me. I knew that it was a few hours home, which was nice. And I knew that it was enormous. And for me, that's what I wanted. I wanted a big school that offered a lot of different things, and it was close to home. So I couldn't go home every night, but I knew that if I wanted to go home on the weekend, I certainly could. So I liked the fact that it was very diverse, very big, offered a lot of different things, but it wasn't really tied to what I thought I wanted to do.
And did you know going in that you were planning to already what you were planning to major in when you got there? Was that already something that you had?
Yeah, so I knew when I chose Ohio State that they did have a very robust arts and sciences and political
Mhm.
science major, and that's what I wanted to major in, and only because I was interested in it. It was fascinating to me to learn about power and who has power. How do you get power? How do you lose power? What happens if you use power badly? What happens if you use power for good? So I was just very interested in that, and how our political system worked in the United States, and then how it worked in other countries, and what worked well and what didn't. But I was just really fascinated with the idea of power, who has it, who doesn't, and what does that mean for our country. So that's why I chose political science.
That's such an interesting perspective. I work with a lot of students, and that I've never had that as a response to the why when I ask students why they would like to go into law, because oftentimes it's, well, I've been in debate, or I've been in something like this, and people tell me I'm good at that. I'm good at arguing with my parents, those kinds of things. But I love that perspective in terms of that curiosity that you had. And I myself am curious, was there anything either historically or anything that kind of piqued your interest in that made you think about that?
There was. So, a very long story short, when I was in third grade, so I was 10 years old, I remember this. um, I went to my father and said, I'd like to be a police officer. I just love the idea of helping people in that way. So, helping people by, 10-year-old brain, getting bad people away from good people, arresting bad people and putting them in jail and making everybody safe was something that just intrigued me, good guy versus bad guy. I kind of like that whole idea. So I asked him, I told him I want to be a police officer, and he said no. And like, oh, I can't do that. And so I didn't really know what to say after that. And he said, well, you could do that. And he actually pointed to the TV, and playing on TV, I remember this, was a black and white television show called Today's FBI. It was with Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. It was an old TV show, black and white. And he said, you could do that. And I said, what is that? And he said, that's the FBI. Well, who's that? And he said, well, it's like the best police department in our country. You could do that. And I said, oh, the best. Well, I want to do that. And he said, well, you can only do that if you go to law school. You have to be a lawyer. And he was an attorney. And I thought, ew. All I thought of was, you go to work every day and you have a suit on, and that all looked really boring. And he said, well, if you want to be in the FBI, you have to be a lawyer. Not true. But he lied to a 10-year-old
Yeah.
and I believed it. So I just set this course for, I want to be an FBI agent, but I have to go to law school. And well, that's cool. That's fine. So I actually didn't know the truth until I got into college. But by that point, I was pretty comfortable with a political science major and then going to law school and then going to the FBI.
So you knew that the FBI at that point in time was kind of the goal. I mean, that was what you wanted.
Yeah,
And
it
so
was. Yeah, when I was 10.
that's pretty cool. I mean, to know and actually follow through on it. We have a lot of students who are 16, 17, 18 who have some goals in mind, or or what they think, and then don't pursue that. But sometimes it's because they have a misunderstanding about what that all entails. So when you were a student at Ohio State, did you have any kinds of internships or job shadowings or anything like that with people in the field? Or tell us about that.
So I did something. Um, it 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 looks as if I was a very bad student because I went to summer school every summer, but I wanted to go to summer school at a different university. So what I think of as, like what did I do um, as an internship? I didn't pursue an internship. What I wanted to broaden my academic career, I suppose.
Mhm.
So I went to a different university outside the state of Ohio every summer. And actually, I started after I graduated from high school. And there was a women's seminar program at American University in DC. And I
Mhm.
said, oh, I want to go there. That looks cool. So I started at American University and then went to Ohio State. But I went to just a college in California one summer. I went to Harvard for a summer. I went to Oxford for a summer. Um, I just, to me, what I wanted was a broader academic experience. Not that Ohio State didn't offer that, but it was just, well, this is one school. So what would happen if I went to a different university? Would I get a different feel or a different perspective on the world if I went somewhere else? And that was it. It just interested me. So if you look at my transcript, I look like I didn't do well because I went to summer school every year. But really, it was just a way to broaden my horizons academically. So I chose that was always kind of my focus for what's the next step, which to me was law school and then the FBI. So I didn't go the internship route. I went kind of that route.
Yeah, that's interesting though. That's a really interesting way to, I mean, it clearly shows that you have a deep interest in growing your education base as well. I mean, I feel like that's, important versus, you know, there are some professions where where you would say that internships are probably very important for networking purposes. I think probably something like law, I would imagine, even like you said, even being exposed to different educational settings, I think is probably pretty valuable. So that's really interesting that you did that. So we won't think that you're a bad student. We know the truth though. So,
Thank you.
so tell
Thank you.
me, when you were looking for law schools, did you have a specific law school in mind? How did that process pan out that you ended up? And a fun fact, you went to the New England College of Law. Is that right?
I did. I did. I went to
Okay.
New England in Boston. And
Okay.
the only thing I knew was, well, I chose, I applied to a lot of different law schools only because I didn't quite know where I wanted to be. Really wasn't very
Hmm.
wise. I guess I would probably not um, recommend that others do that. It's probably better to sort of choose a law school based on a lot of different reasons, based on maybe where you want to live geographically, where you want to take the bar. It's sometimes easier to take the bar where you go to law school.
Hmm.
Um, so there's different factors as to why you choose a law school, but I really wanted to be in Boston. I had gone just for a summer to Harvard and I loved it. So I chose New England actually because it was the first all-female law school in the country. It's
Oh,
not
wow.
that anymore, but
Hmm.
I just thought that was really neat. I just like the history of the school. No, I chose New England, and I did take the Massachusetts bar, but um, yeah, I, it was a weird, circuitous route to get there. But now looking back, I suppose it's good to choose kind of a school where you want to land.
Hmm. Well, my fun fact is that my college roommate also went to the New England College of Law after graduating from college. So
No
I don't
way.
actually can't think of the reason. I think it was probably she got some kind of good financial incentive, some kind of scholarship to go there.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember her doing logic puzzle books to prepare for the LSAT, which I hear is not
Oh
part
my
of the
God.
LSAT anymore. So,
No,
but
thank
anyway,
God.
I digress. But she landed in Boston. She is in Boston. So
Oh.
to your point, maybe that makes a little bit more sense. But so let's
Mhm.
jump into, I think, what a lot of people are going to be curious about, which is your pathway to the FBI. Obviously, not everyone that would like to work for the FBI can work for the FBI. So tell us, how did you get chosen? No, tell us how that happened.
Um, well, I learned, I think it was probably in college, that you didn't have to go to law school to apply to the FBI and get in. Um, but the first thing I would say is there's two tracks in the FBI. So you could be an agent, right? You carry a gun, you have a badge. You can be an agent, or you can be support. So if you're support, you don't have a gun. You're not a sworn law enforcement officer, but you could be an analyst. You could be a translator. We have a lot of different support categories. So there's two paths you can choose when you decide the FBI might be something you're interested in. Um, a lot of people, they watch TV and they see FBI agents on TV and they think, I want to do that. So they choose the agent route. And you can start off as an analyst and start off with maybe anything else and then use that to kind of catapult yourself into an agent spot. You still have to apply, but you're already in. So it kind of gives you a little bit of a leg up. Um,
Mhm.
but so that's the first thing I would say is there's two tracks you can follow. The second thing is, and I'll start with the scary number and then I'll make it easier. So the scary number is less than 1% of people who apply to be an FBI special agent actually get in. So it's very competitive and very hard. That's the scary number. The easy thing to say is the FBI likes, this is the best way to say this, strange and weird people. If you are, hey, I got a degree in biology or in anthropology or, something that you would think, God, and then you became an FBI agent, you have a biology degree. We like people who are different. So you might
Mm.
have a skill that you bring to the bureau that the bureau says, that's unique, that's different, we might need that, please apply. So they value diversity, whether it's race, religion, national origin. They value diversity. They value diversity of your life experience. You lived
Mm-hmm.
overseas for a number of years, or for a first generation immigrant. They love different diverse backgrounds and life experiences. So you're weird and different. They're going to look at that favorably. And the other thing that I would say is if you've led a very clean, honest life, and buy or sell narcotics somewhere in your life, or serve time in a federal penitentiary, um, you can get pretty far along in the process. A lot of people panic towards the end and blow the polygraph, but more often than not, if you're really committed to getting all the way through, you have a really good chance, because chances are you kept a very clean life. You haven't committed a crime, you
Mm-hmm.
haven't bought or sold narcotics, you haven't done something that would knock you out of the box right away. So I think for people who are, especially in high school and college, and they think it's kind of a cool idea that they might want to pursue, they tend to keep a very clean, if they don't have unpaid loans, things like that that might
Mm-hmm.
trip them up in an application. So um, people that want to do it usually get pretty far along in the process. The other thing is you commit to serve for 3 years, whether you're an agent or
Mm-hmm.
support. If you don't like it, you don't have to stay, but you have that bullet or resume, pardon the pun. You have that line on your resume that says, "Hey, I was in the FBI for 3, 4, 5 years. I have a top secret security clearance." You're very marketable with that. So even if you don't love it, you can leave and you still have that on your resume, and it's a great resume builder, especially right out of college. We do hire a good number of folks right out of college, so 23, 24 years old, and they come in as an analyst or a linguist because they speak fluent Arabic or Mandarin.
Mm-hmm.
So there's different paths you can take, but uh, it's the number of the less than 1% that get in is scary. But the reality is, if you really want to do it, unless there's something that's going to knock you out of the box, you got a good shot to get in. So I would encourage folks to go to fi.gov, and you can read more about the two tracks of how to pursue those careers.
So that process is all pretty straightforward, in terms of if someone's looking at doing that, they can. When would you recommend, for example, a college student looking into that? Is it later in college? Is it freshman year? When should they be really starting to think about that? Before they join
Uh,
a rowdy fraternity or sorority, maybe? No, I don't know.
exactly. Um, Freshman year is always good, because if you look at it and you think, "Oh, I definitely want to do that,"
Mhm.
chances are you're going to make some really good life choices for the next 4 years, because you
Yeah.
don't want to get tripped up. You don't want to get an arrest on your record. You don't want to be in a situation where you're at a party and there's illegal narcotics and
Mhm.
the police come and now you're jammed up. So if you look at that at freshman year and you think, "I want to do this," you're going to go down that road of preparing yourself for the background check, which is, as we all would expect, very intrusive, as it should be. Um, but you'll go down the road of keeping that clean lifestyle that we call it, to then increase your chances of actually getting all the way through. So definitely look at it when you look at it in high school. Um,
Mhm.
we do offer, I believe, in most divisions. So an FBI division, there's 56 of them across the country, and then there's small satellite offices. So for example, Cleveland, Ohio is a field office. The Akron, Ohio office is a resident agency. It's just a little offshoot off of Cleveland. So you might be able to, let's say you live in Akron, Ohio, and you're a high school student and you're really interested in the FBI. The divisions offer a teen academy. So you can go to the
Mhm.
FBI office for a day. You have to go through a little background check. You go to the FBI office for a day and you kind of get a sense for what the life of an agent or support employee looks like, to see if that might interest you as you get into college. So we try to offer those opportunities even to high school students.
And when you think about students who would be, and if I'm hearing you right, their academic area in college really actually it doesn't, I think there's a misperception that you need to be a political science or a criminal
Yeah.
justice student to move on that path. But it sounds like there's a variety of different things and actually might make you more interesting. But in terms of unique or distinct skills or anything like that, is there anything like that or character traits, I guess, other than being a very good citizen? Are there other things that you think are that would fit with somebody who would be a good candidate for the FBI?
A lot of agents that you meet are lawyers, accountants, computer scientists, or military law enforcement, or a linguist. So that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like the general broad category. You fall into one of those, you're going to fit right in. But again, let's say you decided to be a microbiologist in college and you did really well. And usually what the FBI looks for is you graduate from college and then there's that 3 to 5 years of work experience. So if you're a lawyer and you went to law school for 3 years, you can apply right after, or you can be hired right after law. But let's say you're a microbiologist, you got a master's in microbiology, you need to go work somewhere to get up to that 3 to 5 year work experience in your background to then apply to the FBI. So what we look for really is, are you good at what you do? So let's say you're an anthropologist or you're something else, but your work history is solid. Your manager or your supervisor gives you rave reviews. Um, what we're looking for is that you've done really well in your life and you're only, let's say, 28, 30 years old, but you've done well in your career path. And everybody along that career path has something really positive to say about you. And it could be something as simple as she shows up to work on time. She's
Mm-hmm.
timely, she's punctual.
Sure.
Her oral and written communications are exceptional. She works well in a team environment. She's goal and mission oriented. So things like that are going to stand out for sure in a background.
So tell me, are there people in the FBI who maybe weren't the best high school students?
Yes. And even look, there's FBI agents that didn't graduate in the top 50% of their high school or college class, and they
Mm-hmm.
became exceptional FBI agents. We're not looking for you had to be valedictorian. If you were, that's great. I mean, don't get me wrong, but you can graduate from college with, a 2.8, a 3.0, and same with high school and still be an exceptional FBI agent because maybe that wasn't your strong suit, and your strong suit is people problem solving
Mm-hmm.
or being able to mitigate conflict. That's a huge one. It's
Mm-hmm.
not, did you do well in history class? So don't let that deter you for sure.
That's good to know. Thank you. I didn't, and by the way, I didn't can that question with Cynthia. That was a real answer. Um, I'm curious, switching gears away from the FBI and to your work with civil rights law, Matthew Shepard Foundation. It's so interesting. I mean, the work that you have did and continue to do in that area. And I obviously we're living in a time where, it's clearly a very it's something I think everyone is aware of things that are happening in the world and locally, nationally, et cetera. Um, Tell me about your interest in that, because that is obviously that was something that you focused on as part of the FBI, but then how did you end up going to the Matthew Shepard Foundation?
Um, goes so let's go. Now we're up to so let's see. We started when I was in third grade. Now we're going to go up to seventh grade. So in seventh grade, um, I had to write my first research paper. I'm not going to tell you the year, but I was in seventh grade and I had to write my first research paper. And this is, before the Google, where you had to go to a
Hmm.
library and you had a 3x5 cards. Um, and it must have been something that was happening at the time. I know you're from Ohio too. It had to be something that was happening at the time because I wrote it on the Kent State shooting. So Kent State shooting was May 4th of 1970, and four Kent State students lost their lives in a anti-Vietnam protest on campus, although they were not protesting, but
Hmm.
they lost their life. They were shot and killed. And I was very interested with how that happened. And as a 13-year-old, I thought, wait a minute, a college kid was shot and killed by the National Guard. I don't get that. Like, I just didn't understand that. And that I think that curiosity of, again, that power dynamic. So the students that had none and they were unarmed were just walking around a campus full of very well armed militiamen. And
Mhm.
so that interested me, and that kind of led to the FBI and actually the misdeeds of the FBI. So all of the
Mhm.
really bad things that J. Edgar Hoover did in the FBI is what intrigued me about the Bureau. And I thought, well, that's using power in a bad way. What if you got in there and turned that around and used the machine, the power that is the FBI, to do good and to promote ideals of equity and equality and justice and anti-discrimination? What if you turn that on its head? And so that's why I pursued civil rights in the Bureau. Was I love the idea of kind of taking the ideals of Martin Luther King and Mahatma Gandhi of equality and equity and civil rights and driving that forward as an FBI agent. And that's what I wanted to do. And so I spent all my career, my 22 years, doing investigating police officers for misconduct and abuse and working on hate crime investigations and prosecutions, as well as some trafficking and abortion extremism. So it's the hate crime and police brutality is where I spent all my time. So when I was ready to retire, I knew Dennis and Judy Shepard, who lost their son Matthew in an anti-gay hate crime in 1998. I knew them from my work in the Bureau. They needed help. I needed a new home. So they hired me to come and work with them to, again, do a lot of hate crime training, work with communities, and try to have communities be safe and have people feel comfortable with their law enforcement officials, have law enforcement feel comfortable with their marginalized communities. And just, again, that idea of keeping people safe, going back to when I was 10. Um, I just love that idea of trying to get people to get along and live safe together. So it kind of all followed, um, in my head, it all followed very naturally to go from the FBI to Matthew Shepard and then to Facebook. So Facebook, I'm just going to go ahead and just tell
Yeah.
that part. So Facebook, so Facebook is the only tech company that has a dedicated civil rights team. And what we
Wow.
do is we try to make sure that everything that Facebook does, you think of Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and the Oculus headset, um, that everything that we do does not hurt a marginalized community. And it's a lot of work for a little small team. But again, it just feeds into that trajectory of civil rights work and trying to keep people safe that, again, I was pursuing since I was 10.
You have done so many things. I think that I, I hope that you feel this way, that you should feel proud of. What are you most proud of with all these things that you've done? Because it's so impactful. I know you're not doing, I know you and well enough, I think, to know that you're not doing it for for yourself. I mean, but
So
what are you most proud of?
helping victims of crime. So I was in New York on 9/11, and I had the great fortune of spending 3 months after 9/11 working with all the families that were impacted by that horrible terrorist attack. And they taught me so much about resiliency and forgiveness and how to treat victims of crime, how not to treat victims of crime. And that to me is the most rewarding work that I've done. And I was also privileged to work with victims of the Boston Marathon bombing and some other tragedies. And they really just, they taught me so much about life and again about forgiveness and what I can do to help somebody who's having the absolute worst day of their lives and help them get through it. So that to me is the most rewarding work I've done.
I think I asked that because to me, like I said, when looking through all the things that you've done, it would be hard for me to pull out something where I say, gosh, this is like the thing that was most impactful so far in your career, because you've really had the opportunity. And I do think you would probably see it as opportunities to be impactful in those situations with a variety of different, it's very unfortunate that there have been that many situations where you've had an opportunity, I mean, when you think of it that way, but it's great that you've had the ability to make an impact in ways that probably resonate for years and years beyond that moment of whenever that was that you were able to help. But what kind of advice, as we wrap up, do you have any advice for young people who hope to maybe work in a space and do some of the things that you've been able to do in your career, what advice do you give to 16, 17-year-olds today?
Um, I guess a couple of thoughts I'd leave them with. One, I hope they pick a college where they feel safe and they feel like they can be themselves. And that might be small. It might be the Ohio State University. It could be something that's tiny. It could be something in-state, out of state. But find your academic home that makes you feel safe and empowered to be who you are. So that's the first thing about just colleges. And about a career, see if you can find somebody, and you may not find them when you're 16. So don't, I didn't, but just, you will eventually, but see if you can find somebody who's kind of doing what you think you might want to do, and to them, ask them. I meet college kids all the time that say, I want to be in the FBI or I want to work in tech. And I always hand them my business card and say, email me. Let me see if I can help you with something. Let's just see what I can help you do. I like to pay it forward. So see if you can connect with somebody. Don't be shy. If there's, there's a speaker on campus, or there's a speaker at your high school, or your friend's mom in your high school class does something you really think is cool, talk to her about it. Don't be afraid to say, I'd like to learn more about how you got to be where you are, because I think that might be something I'd like to do. Because chances are they're going to welcome the opportunity to be that mentor for you. So find someone that is doing what you're doing. And then the next thing is, you're going to see people out there that they may they may be in your wheelhouse as to what the field you'd like to be in. Let's say if you want to be a lawyer, they're doing the type of law that you find interesting. Latch onto their coattails. Latch onto their coattails. That's how I got in Meta. My vice president, who I work for, I've known him since 2009, and we were colleagues and friends. And he needed to build his team, and he called me. So we did work together, but I was in the FBI, he was in the Department of Justice, and we just kept finding ourselves in the same spaces, and we just became friends and colleagues. And so I kind of kept him close. So you'll find people along your journey, and they could be in high school, they could be in college, they could be in graduate school, they could be at your workplace, but you'll find people that you want to hang on to, and hang on to those people. Hang on to those people. Send them a Christmas card, check in every once in a while. But chances are they're going to welcome the opportunity to help you be who you were meant to be. So just don't be afraid to reach out. People aren't nasty. They're gonna want to take the time to help you, for sure.
That's really great advice, and I think that's something that we do share with students. I think school counselors and independent counselors, as we're meeting with students, we encourage them to, everyone that you meet could potentially be somebody that could be resourceful for you later on. And so maintaining relationship, building relationships, maintaining those relationships is super important. And I know you're active on LinkedIn. We tell our students, connect with people on LinkedIn so that you can keep up with what they're doing and reach out to them, as needed. So I know that's one way. And I know you said, if anyone has questions or anything, they could reach out to you. What I will do is I'll share your website after, with the recording of this to the folks who we have in our listings and everything. But if that's okay, I know you said that's okay, but
Oh yes,
and I
please.
think it's okay.
Yeah.
But I'm really appreciative of your just transparency, and also just the very clear, concise guidance, which I think actually a couple of the nuggets I'll just say real quickly that I didn't expect, but that I was glad that you shared, were the things about the fact that you don't have to have a prescribed academic major. You don't have to be a political science major or criminal justice to go into something like the FBI or law. And like I mentioned my college roommate, hi Anne, hopefully she's watching. She was an art history major, but she wanted to go to law school, so it was, not everything is as direct as people I think assume it is. And the other piece of it is that, thinking in terms of pathways and connections and stepping stones, it's not always just a straight line, in terms of where you may end up down the line. But I love that you said, in terms of those kids who maybe aren't the top kids in high school, we often work with those kids who maybe feel like, you know what, I'm a good student, but I'm not the top student. And maybe there's nothing for me because I'm not that top student, but they have skill sets that would absolutely make them great at a variety of careers. And they're, I think that is a really, I think, comforting message for students. I'm not saying, encouraging kids to slack off in school, but I think it's good for students to know that that doesn't cut off careers like what you're talking about. I think that is an important message coming from you, that there could be a spot for those kids as well. So thanks for sharing that piece of it. But again, I promised you I would keep this short. I know you are very busy. For those watching this, Cynthia is so busy. She does so many trainings around the country. I see what you're doing all the time. So many different speaking engagements with trainings and all kinds of things, just helping people, which I think is, very, not just admirable, but I love that you can sense the passion in your voice about why you do those things. It's not just because, so I think that that's super helpful. There is
Well,
one quick
let me,
question. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
but also it's shameless plug to you. There's so many kids that are in high school that they don't have a they don't have
Hmm.
you that they can call on and say, I don't know what I'm doing, and I feel lost, and I don't have a path, and I don't have a direction, and I'm not the valedictorian, I'm not going to Harvard, and and they don't have folks like you that they can rely on to help them find their way. So it's um it's such a it's a beautiful thing that you offer to help kids find their way. Because
Thank you.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Thanks. Yeah, and it's, that's one of the reasons also why we started trying to do some of these things as well, so that we could share information. And I mentioned earlier, give students information from people who've had those lived experiences that they're hoping to have. And speaking of that, we have a question that came in
Yeah.
actually just now through the Q&A. A student actually who's thinking of becoming a lawyer. Welcome. And potentially something involved with forensic psychology and potentially the
Ooh.
FBI. And the question is, what type of law did you practice, and did you litigate in a courtroom during your time?
Yeah. So when I graduated from law school, um, I should probably mention this. So it takes on average a year to get through the FBI background check. So the time you first go online to apply to the FBI until the time you show up assuming you want to be an agent, until the time you show up at Quantico, it's about a year, if not more. So you kind of have to know when is the right time to apply. So I applied my second year of law school and got all the way through the spring semester of my last year, and I was right before the physical fitness test, and I got stuck in a hiring freeze. So I had um, let job offers go because I thought I was getting in by the time I took the bar, and I got stuck in a hiring freeze. So I did what I do best, which is I went back to school and I went and got another degree. So and then I got another one after that. But in the second round of another degree is when I finally got hired in the FBI, and I finished that degree when I was in New York in the bureau. So um, I never practiced. I never was a litigator. That's probably the answer to your question. The second thing is I've practiced law, but only to help family and friends. So I do a lot of just, hey, you're a lawyer. Could you help me? Yes, cousin Susie, I can help you with that. And that's just, it's my pro bono work. So I don't charge for any of that. God, shh, shh. But I help a lot of family and friends just with their wills or, some minor
Mhm.
criminal scuffle they need to get themselves out of. So I practice only in a pro bono setting, but no, I was never a litigator.
Got it. Thank you. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule tonight with us, Cynthia. And like I mentioned, we'll share your website and information with folks, so that if they have any questions, or if there's, this student that's watching, that just ask the questions, you can reach out to Cynthia, ask some questions.
And
Yeah, go ahead.
you brought up you don't know this, but you brought up a great point. So your roommate was an art history major.
Yes.
So in New York, I don't know if it's in Los Angeles or as well, I can't remember, but the New York FBI actually has an art theft squad.
Oh,
So your
wow.
roommate had graduated from college and then gone to the FBI, most likely would have been assigned to work art theft
Wow.
because of her background. So you never know what your background could bring to the Bureau. I'll just wanted
Yeah.
to end with that.
No, that's a really great point about those. We try to tell students also that there's not, we think of, oftentimes people think of careers very siloed, lawyer, doctor, teacher, et cetera. But there's even within things like within the FBI, there's all these kind of brand, offshoots of things that are very specific based on education, interest, all those kinds of things. So that's a really good example as well. It's just some of the things that we often tell students, don't think of it so narrow, that it's this and then this. Again, that, kind of step-by-step pathway. We show them like a scribbly picture of like a 2-year-old did. And we say, this is like, you're going to be your path, this is what it
Yep,
actually looks
that's
like,
right.
not like that straight line
That's
up.
nope.
And that's okay because you're learning every
Yeah,
single one of those twists and turns, you're learning something. So
that's right. That's right.
anyway, but thank you so much, Cynthia. It was always good. It's always good to see you.
It's
And
good to see you
especially
too.
this is a different setting, but I like seeing you this way too. And I learned so much about you tonight that I didn't know. So I appreciate it. And for everybody watching again, check out Cynthia's really interesting background and story on our website. And I really thank you for your time. Have a great
Thank
rest
you
of
as
your
well.
evening.
I
You're welcome.
appreciate you
Take
as well.
care. Thanks,
All right.
Cynthia.
Bye bye.
Bye.